What happens when dozens of lights descend from the sky in perfect formation, hovering over a US military range, and then vanish without a trace? It was late evening on a warm Arizona night, the kind where desert heat lingers long after the sun has dipped behind the mountains. In an unmarked training zone near the border, a small unit of Air Force pilots was completing a routine low-altitude exercise. Yet something far from routine was about to unfold. Captain Sarah Miller, a pseudonym, was flying an F-16A when her warning lights flickered. She'd seen odd things in her career, but never quite like this. Through the cockpit glass, in the twilight sky, she spotted a cluster of lights, 8, then 12 moving swiftly in formation. They maintained uniform spacing, shifting as one. Hovering at altitudes her radar had trouble locking onto dot. At first she assumed drones, perhaps from a bordering nation, or some local hobbyist swarm. But these lights possessed no telltale blinking nav lights and no obvious propulsion trail. They glowed with a steady orange-white hue, drifted silently, then accelerated at speeds no conventional drone should. Her wingman on radio described the same thing. Looks like a string of pearls moving in unison, straight down, then straight up, then off at 400 knots in seconds. Ground radar detected something too. The radar operator at the nearby range logged multiple blips, synchronized, moving together, sometimes splitting apart, then rejoining. The unit commander immediately paused the mission and contacted higher command. Within minutes, news channels picked up civilian reports from towns nearby, flickering lights over the desert that seemed to perform impossible turns, accelerate in seconds, then vanish as though they never existed. The phenomenon wasn't isolated. Months later, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, would log an unusual spike in unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP swarm-type reports. In that sector near USAF training zones, what you're about to hear is a single continuous flow of events. From the first detection, through investigation, speculation, personal reactions, through to the unresolved endgame. It's a story about a swarm, a cluster, a formation that defies easy classification. The evening had begun innocuously. Sarah and her team launched just after dusk. The sky was clear, stars already pinpricking the darkening canopy. The mission, a night navigation exercise, low level, heading north-east. Her radar showed nothing unusual initially. Then, approximately 20 minutes into the flight, the comms lit up. "Captain Miller, your instruments are spiking. Something approaching 12 o'clock high, altitude unknown. Multiple returns." She glanced over her HUD and saw nothing obvious. But in the cold night sky, slightly above her altitude, she began picking up small glows in her peripheral vision. At first one, then another. They drifted together. She called to her wingman. "You see that cluster, 10 o'clock, 3,000 feet above?" He replied, "Affirmative." "It's moving as one. No wings, no exhaust, no noise. This is not standard ops." In the next moments, she watched in awe. The cluster resolved into roughly a dozen or more glowing orbs, arranged loosely in a grid formation. They hovered momentarily, then executed a coordinated motion, diving together, then climbing almost vertically, then zeroing their formation and streaking away at incredible speed. The radar tracking showed speeds upwards of 400 knots, then suddenly disappearing, back at the ground station. The radar logs flagged 11 separate tracks, all converging in less than 20 seconds. Then, moving off at high speed and vanishing, the commander scrambled a second pair of jets to intercept. By the time they arrived, the swarm was gone. Days later, the Pentagon's newly established All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, would reference the incident in its internal logs. According to unclassified material, nearly half of the UAP reports received by AARO remain unexplained. But for Sarah and her team, the incident raised questions beyond classification: purpose, origin, intent. Why did the objects behave as a swarm? Why formation movements so tight, so synchronized? Why approach a US training range, hover, then depart? Meanwhile, civilian reports continued. In nearby towns, dozens claimed to see strings of lights that performed choreographed movements, flicking on and off, shifting direction in sharp arcs even when no wind stirred the air. A local newspaper described them as pearls dancing above the desert that vanished like smoke. These were not lone phenomena. They were clusters, swarms, formations at one pass. A woman named Maria reported, "I saw 10 lights, all moving together, making a perfect square shape. Then all of them shot straight up and disappeared. My husband swears they followed the road, then ascended over the ridge." Her description echoes what the flight crews logged. In the weeks that followed the event, military analysts poured through radar tracks, cockpit videos, infrared footage, and eyewitness accounts. The target zone was scrutinized for drone incursions, foreign broadcasts, satellite passes. Yet no known operator claimed the swarm. No flight plan matched. No telemetry returned. One analysis considered advanced drone swarm technology possibility not trivial. Indeed, reports of drone swarms affecting Navy ships off the California coast had been documented, involving dozens of unmanned aerial vehicles acting in concert. But the Desert Night incident exceeded known drone performance. The speed, abrupt maneuvers, the altitude range, the stealth of the approach. Something didn't align with convention, further complicating things. The objects seemed unaffected by atmospheric drag, changes in wind or terrain. They hovered and moved with a precision that suggested high inertial control, beyond typical drones. But even more puzzling, post-incident, no debris, no signatures, no transponder. Radar returns simply ended. The clusters vanished. Ground sensors registered nothing unusual. Captain Sarah found herself unable to sleep for days afterwards. In the quiet of the night, she replayed the moment when she pointed her jet's camera at the falling lights, watched them accelerate upward, then disappear beyond radar range. Her military mindset demanded answers. Are they adversarial? Are they ours? Are they some other phenomenon? She voiced aloud to her wingman, "If these things are friendlies, why didn't we know? If they're adversaries, why didn't we intercept? And if there's something else, what the hell are they doing here?" Her wingman nodded quietly. Neither had a satisfying answer. In briefings, the room was austere. The commander said, "We don't know. We collect data. We remain vigilant, period." Yet the deeper question hung heavy. Might this swarm behavior represent something beyond standard aircraft, beyond drones, even beyond our current understanding of aerodynamics? Could the formation of multiple objects moving in unison in ways that defy expectations hint at a new category of UAP? Some scientists suggest that many UAP sightings may involve unusual plasma phenomena. Plasmoids charged bodies in the upper atmosphere that clustered, split, accelerate, hover, and descend near thunderstorms or satellites. Under that framework, a swarm of glowing objects could be a natural atmospheric phenomenon, not a piloted craft. But whether that explains formations moving in perfect synchrony and at such low altitude remains an open question. As Sarah continued flying missions, she found herself glancing upward more often, studying the sky for anomalies. It changed her approach to training. She briefed her unit, "Assume we are not alone in this airspace. Assume someone or something is watching or moving, and stay alert." Meanwhile, unofficial voices inside the US defense community began to speak of formation UAPs and cluster swarms over restricted airspaces. A report cited numerous sightings near training zones in small swarms, sometimes in groups of 8, flying at high altitudes. The message being, these aren't always single glowing balls. They can appear as multiple entities in formation. Why formations? The concept of a swarm implies coordination, perhaps with a leader or a collective intelligence. In nature, we see this in bird flocks, fish schools, insect swarms. Each entity in the formation moves in response to its neighbors. The group acts as one. If these UAP clusters behave similarly, they could be following rules or objectives beyond our recognition. Some pilots speculated, are they probes? Are they sensors? Are they testing our reaction? If one craft approached the training zone, advanced radar would detect it and respond. But a swarm may confuse classification, overwhelm tracking, or hide within the collective motion. A single craft might be easily intercepted. A cluster is altogether more complex. There's also the psychological effect. Sarah described a sense of disorientation when the cluster turned as one and accelerated. The cockpit's inertial sensors didn't register a conventional maneuver. Her jet felt normal, but the target objects executed a pop-up dive, vanish sequence that left her mind racing. Weeks passed. Public interest rose. Local news stations aired night vision footage of lights. Enthusiasts posted videos online. Analysts weighed the possibilities. Military drones, extraterrestrial craft, atmospheric plasmas, coordinated foreign systems. In September, an independent think tank published a short review of UAP phenomena, pointing out that scientists are increasingly taking the subject seriously because these anomalies could pose national security and aviation safety risks. The more the world talks about UAPs, the more clusters and swarms come into view. The silence of the skies becomes less reassuring. Back in Arizona, Sarah's unit resumed training missions, but with additional protocols. Any unusual cluster formation triggers alert. Radio silence is broken, sensors sweep wider. She joked once, "If the lights show up again, I'll call them my flying friends." But even that joke felt hollow. Months later, the official record still lists the incident as unresolved unknown objects in formation observed over restricted airspace. Documents remain classified. Ground radar logs sit behind locked doors. The pilot's sworn statements are filed away. Yet the real story is not just what was seen, but what it means. A swarm, a cluster, a formation of unknown objects moving with purpose, almost intelligence, over military airspace, near a constrained environment, in the heart of the sky where we feel safe. If we accept that these formations exist, what can we conclude? That our sensors, our training, our procedural responses may be inadequate for detecting and responding to collective anomalies, that the behavior of swarming UAPs might exploit our expectations of encounters, that the unknown may not always be singular. It may arrive in numbers, in coordination, and most unsettling. If we don't know what they are, we don't know what they want. As Sarah landed her jet one night, she looked up at the stars. She thought of the swarm, the formation, the lights. A chill ran through her despite the desert warmth. If something else is out there and moving in packs, what does that mean for us? For our airspace, for our security, for our understanding of the skies? Because when the lights disappear, the questions remain. And so this story lives in the liminal space between the knowable and the unknown. A single night, one swarm, one cluster, yet enough to ripple the mental fabrics of those who witnessed it. Captain Miller will fly again. Her squadron will train again. But she now carries the awareness that the night sky above Arizona might not just belong to stars and satellites anymore. It might host something else, something grouped, organized, together. And that is a thought that keeps her watching the skies. In the silent desert dark, formations may stir. They may drift, hover, accelerate, vanish, all without a trace left on the ground. What are they? Friend or foe? Natural or engineered? And if they are intentional, what objective could they serve? The unanswered question weighs heavy. You might sleep soundly tonight, but remember, the sky you see might be just the front row seat to an event you can't yet explain. And the swarm, the cluster, they might just be gathering